Hello, everyone, and welcome to our July edition of our webinar series. I'm here with the wonderful Aaron Weike, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I thought I'd give a little intro as well. I've known Aaron for many, many years. I actually don't know how many, but quite a few. And he's run lots of different companies, and I'll let him kind of share that. But we're going to be talking today about leads and conversions and things that small businesses cannot seem to wrap their head around but need to. And Aaron's current company, Leadferno, is a lead type platform that's software, and we actually have it on our own website on Sterling Sky's site. So if you're wondering what exactly Leadferno does, Sterling Sky's website has a little box when you go on it that is our contact form. It's also our chat form. If you want to see a live demonstration of how it looks. But Aaron, I will let you just quickly introduce yourself and what we're going to be talking about today.
Thanks, Joy. Thanks for having me. I would dare to say we've probably known each other over a decade now. So we can chunk that time. It doesn't even have to be years. We can put it into bigger things. But yeah, as you mentioned, my current baby is Leadferno. The easiest way to describe this is we're a conversion platform. We're all about creating more conversations from the web traffic that you already have. For me, this was kind of a culmination, as you alluded to. I've done a number of things, mostly in the digital agency and then software space. So this kind of combined a lot of my previous experiences in building hundreds of websites, always trying to figure out and cobble together contact solutions, this contact form plugin, this service, all of those different elements. And then in my time at GatherUp, just sifting through millions of reviews and seeing how many people were getting just terrible reviews because their communication and how they set expectations were so bad. So as I approached my next adventure, it was how can we work to make that better? And in the easiest sense, I just always adhere to the golden rule. What I think is the new golden rule of business is how easy do you make your business to work with? And those entry points into communication, being able to ask a question, start to engage, all of those things definitely aligned there. And the reason you're having me on today is because we just finished up with a big batch of research, which I'm a nerd at heart. I love being able to do research. I know you do too, Joy. Just getting in, and yes, we have our opinions and our biases, but it's so great when we actually get to go through and collect real data and see what actually emerges. Does it line up with what we think, where our eyes opened a little bit, and what does that full experience look like? So that's what we aim to do with this. We just took a look and said, okay, no matter what, almost every website on the internet has a contact form. And interesting enough, for most small businesses, the contact form really is their only digital conversion method, right? They'll have their phone number displayed and they want people to call them, click to call, things like that. They may or may not have their email displayed. Obviously, we'll talk about some of this, but the proliferation and abundance of spam causes a lot of people not to want to put their email address out there to have it pulled in, indexed, robots grab it, and everything else. So a contact form really for a lot of businesses is their number one. Some will have separate lead forms or an ability to schedule or do something like that. But we just see forms play, the just general contact us page play a big part in the conversion. So just to share the research criteria here to understand what we were taking a look at, we wanted to focus on what I would just say are healthy, established businesses. So in understanding what we put together, we filled out 225 small business contact forms. And we took this sampling from across three main areas: home services, professional services, and the medical industries. And we wanted to make sure that they ranked in the top 10 of MapPack, Local Finder. So we weren't looking for those that obviously weren't putting any effort or longevity into their digital marketing presence, their Google business profiles, things like that. We set a minimum of having at least 25 reviews as kind of a sign of success or quality with the business. But overall, our study averaged nearly 140 reviews per business. All of our submissions, I'll share a couple of examples of what they look like, but these were highly qualified leads. We were very specific in what we were asking for and looking for in a next step. It was not confusing at all as to why we were reaching out within these. We completed all of their fields, gave them all of our contact information based on what they have. And then we basically tracked how the business responded to these leads over a little over a 3-week period. So we gave a very large grace time to see how they followed up, how they didn't follow up, how many times, things like that. And those are some of the things that we'll share today, and just have some discussion on what businesses and what their agencies should be thinking about when they talk to their customers, both about lead capture and lead follow-up. So just to take a couple looks at these sample requests, so you can see each of the 3 industries I mentioned of home services, professional, and medical. I kind of gave, here's the ones that we were searching and filling out the forms inside. And then specifically the orange one is highlighting a sample of what that request looked like. So when we reached out to a landscaper in home services, we're letting them know we want to put in a backyard paver patio. Professional services, the example from personal injury lawyers, in an accident, has injuries, looking for some advice on what next steps might be. Medical, just highlighting someone just moving to the area, needing to find a dentist for their 2 children. So again, all of these completely bottom of funnel and very acute with what we were looking for and providing buying signals. So with that, let's get into kind of the first thing that we saw from this. And this, to me, is kind of reflective of the sampling that we took. If we would have gone down a level or been more open and not had things like their ranking, or their search visibility and number of reviews, I definitely know we would have seen a higher level of broken forms, just because, as many of us know, when you neglect many parts of your digital market, like, these are the things that happen. But what we saw is nearly about 5% of the contact forms were broken when we got into these. So this could be as blatant as, and I see this one quite often, I'm on websites all day long, is you see the short code to plug in the form is displaying on the page. So either the plugin hasn't been updated, something else is conflicting with it, but instead of getting a form, you get the contact form ID from the WordPress short code plugin. We also saw things on there like they released a new web design and you could fill in the forms, but then you went to click submit and the submit button wasn't actually connected, right? It had the normal /# sign that you use to indicate it is a link, but doesn't actually do anything. So I will say, out of the double digits of these that we saw to equal that 4.8%, we did do our good deeds, and we reached out to them to let them know their contact form was broken and not working. So we did try to clean up the internet a little bit as part of this research.
That's nice of you. Now I'm curious, for the people that you reached out to, did you get responses from those?
Over half replied, just said, thanks. Most were like, we'll forward this on to our web person, whatever else. But yeah, again, it was only half, but there's multiples that were like, oh, wow, okay, thanks for helping us out. And the other ones, maybe they're completely asleep at the wheel on all fronts. Their email doesn't work either. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and this is a question that I get asked quite a bit. Like, how would you even know if your contact form is broken, right? I know I've heard of people that maybe have tools to monitor them, but often the stories I hear from business owners is they find out after the fact, right? Like, it's been broken for a couple days and then they're like, my leads are slow, and realize it's broken. So how would you suggest monitoring that?
Yeah. So I definitely think there are some services, just by doing some Googling out there. There are services that will periodically go and complete your web form to make sure it's working. I would also stress, like, if you have someone in sales or marketing doing a once a week form fit, like, you don't want to go too long without doing that, right? So as much as you can do those kind of things, we do see too, kind of have and have not. So you have certain CMSs or website services that are really pretty rock solid. So when you get into things like you're using a Squarespace, Duda, things like that, where it's built in, they're doing internal monitoring of this as well. And their form solutions aren't quite so brittle. But definitely, just as you see with, the example I was sharing before, when you get into WordPress and you have plugins and updating and you have so many other moving pieces that are, dependent upon that, that's where we start to see that even more. So I would say, depending upon the type of business, if you have the resources and you can find a service for 10, 15, 20 bucks a month that will fill in your form daily or do a check or things like that, absolutely investing in that over losing a lead is a fabulous idea. Otherwise, just making sure you work that into your routine as a check and balance, because, you mentioned, Joy, one thing might be, oh, I feel like leads are slow, but overwhelmingly, what I have usually found in the past and seeing this and working at a time where contact forms were even more brittle and crappier and breaking, it's almost always a really determined prospect that will alert you, right? They'll call you or email and say, I filled out your form. I did this. I haven't heard anything. And when you're relying on the customer to do all that legwork to say like, hey, I'm trying to get help and your form didn't help me, like that's definitely not your best monitoring solution.
No kidding. One thing I'll add to that as a tip too, like we have a lot of clients that are starting to utilize virtual assistants, which I can say is wonderful. We actually started using them at Sterling Sky, and this is a perfect type of task to give a virtual assistant. Like just have them go in, once a week. Depending on your business, I'd say once a week is generally good, but again, depending on your lead volume and your business and how much it means to you, you could up that frequency. But it's a great task that you could easily give to somebody. And we have a large number of small businesses as clients now. They're starting to utilize VAs for work like this, right? So it's a really easy thing to get them to do.
Yeah, great point.
For sure. All right, I think you were going to also talk about like auto responses, right? Is that something? Yeah. Is that something that a business should have on their lead forms?
Yep. So when we talk about no-brainer, simple things that you can do that are smart and take like zero effort, auto replies is one. And just this auto reply is just sending them an immediate email or message that says, hey, we got your message. We're going to follow up with you. If you can get more detailed and give them an expectation on who it might be or the time frame they're going to, all of those things are going to benefit you. And this one really surprised me. Only 15.6% of the forms we completed sent an auto reply. And this with most form solutions nowadays, where they're using Gravity Forms, number of other WordPress plugins, things like that. Like this is an option that you just check and turn on and put in your message. So for all of taking 2 minutes or 5 minutes to write it and set it up, now you're giving an immediate touch point to your lead. And to me, it's so incredibly important to immediately establish contact with them and say, hey, we got your message. We've got you. Here's what you can expect. And then deliver on that is setting up the right process. So unbelievably mind-blowing to me that, almost 85% of these are just not taking this, that again, 5 minutes, and then it's going to run and work by itself.
I think it might also, like, I'm trying to imagine why people wouldn't set this up. Some people might get the impression that auto responses are kind of impersonal and not needed. So what would you say to that?
I think absolutely not, because we've all had the experience, especially with small businesses. You fill out a form and you're like, no idea what's going to happen now, right? Because we've already worked with companies where we filled it out and no one ever responded, or they got back to us weeks later. And when we're looking to find a solution to our problem, sending it, not getting any type of confirmation really is just a poor idea. I mean, one other thing, and I wish I would have included a visual, but hopefully most of you have seen this. When you use a form solution that letting you know that it was submitted is just like one line of text that's all the way below the form that says, completed. Mm-hmm. It's often out of the view of the user, and it's not substantial enough for them to know, like, did this go through? Did it just, refresh? The last thing you ever want to do is cause confusion for a user. And to me, this is just that instant, like, hey, we got you. This is in our system. You are going to be followed up with, because when you don't do that, within minutes, that prospect can start thinking like, I don't have confidence that these guys are even getting this or getting back to me. And so they will continue to look for another solution. And so to me, this is like that stopper of looking. And it now actually, you can set a time frame and say, this is when we're going to engage with you. And the consumer has an expectation on that. And you can make that happen instead of them saying, all right, I'm probably going to fill out another one of these. And if they if I get confirmation of them, now I can count on them to follow up with me. And that's the last thing that you want to do. If you got them all the way to give the effort to fill out your form, you don't want to lose on a step like this, just them wondering, did it go, out into the ether, or will someone be following up with me?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know Google, when they had their messaging feature, which I know they're getting rid of, but one of the first things that they had was an auto response, and I think it
Yep.
was like by default turned on. So should tell you something if a company the size of Google believes that this is a good idea, then it's probably a good idea. So that
Yep.
is interesting to see how few
Yep.
people have that.
Well, in a, weird or basic way, if you're trying to call a business and the phone just rings and rings and rings forever, you have no feeling of, did I actually reach the business? Nothing will happen, right? So an auto reply is kind of like answering the phone. Even if you get a voicemail and like, hey, leave a message or whatever, at least a next step took place, instead of
Mhm.
wondering that it's there. So just for like a sample, I pulled up here. Here's a sample of one auto reply, right? Just thanks for reaching out to us. We'll respond as soon as possible. Again, I always love if you can include, if you're able to adhere to a time frame and say within 30 minutes, within 60 minutes, within 2 hours, during the same business day. When you can give that kind of expectation, it just builds that much higher trust, and that definitely will shut down them searching for competitors. You can also tell them like, hey, here's other ways to contact us. You can also, what we see a lot with our Leadferno customers, because we use text messaging for the auto reply, is we'll have them ask a question as well. So not only say, hey, thanks for contacting us, here's when we'll reply, feel free to tell us more, or what's your home address, right? A question that we know we're going to need to ask and that isn't on the initial form. We might ask that secondary question because now it's just automating their interaction with you, and you're getting more information on that lead.
I'm literally writing notes. I'm like, got to do that on our Leadferno forums, because we definitely don't tell people what to expect as far as the time frame. So we should definitely do that. And I love the idea of asking the questions that you already know you're going to need to, because we have so many people reach out to us and they're like, I need help, and they don't tell us anything about their business or their website or anything. And it's like, okay, we kind of need those details to know what to do next.
Yeah, and you always have this tricky balance of, you don't want to ask everything you need to know up front,
Yeah.
right? Like I always say, forms, like every field of a form is like a brick on a wall. And so the more questions you have, the wall's higher, and to get them to climb over that wall is even more. So I always say you want to ask the most minimal amount of questions possible that gets the lead started. And then you want your process to quickly and easily nurture that lead and get you the additional information. So if you're just getting some of the basics to start the conversation, being able to ask them 1 or 2 questions, like, hey, here's when we're going to respond. To get started, can you tell us this and this? Now you're getting them into a conversation and interaction with you. You're getting more information of what's there, and you still have the initial information that you needed from their original submission.
Yeah. So I'll throw one at you. This is a kind of argument I've had with one of my clients for years. So he's a lawn care business, and I'm actually a customer of his as well. And on his contact form, he makes people upload a photo of their lawn. And you can't submit the form without uploading a photo. And I was like, dude, like I would never do that. Like if I was shopping around for lawn care companies and you made me go take a photo, then I'm not like, I wouldn't contact you. And he's like, it causes so much more work for my team if we don't have that. We have to get you to get it to us anyways, because in order to quote you, we have to know how big your property is and yada, yada. So I've heard that argument from clients where it's like they need to qualify the leads, which is why they have that kind of barrier to entry. What would you say to that?
Yeah. All right. So I think there's a number of interesting things to break down in that. I'm glad. I was worried you're going to tell me if they had to submit how many blades of grass they had in their yard.
Not that bad.
that would be the ultimate hurdle. When you get into things like that, you're basically, you're really requiring a lot, and you're requiring your customer to be prepared for things they don't even know they need to be prepared about, right? And in that case of a photo, if I'm on my laptop, I don't have photos of my yard on my laptop. So now I have to go take it with my phone if I started the conversation there, and I either need to redo the process on my phone, or I need to email myself the photos from my phone, or airdrop them, transfer them, whatever else. So it's like, it becomes a very disjointed process. And I get from a business side, we want our leads to be as qualified as possible. The business owners do. But I would say as marketers, what we want is opportunities more than anything else. And if our opportunities aren't panning out right, that means like we're advertising in the wrong places. We're targeting the wrong audiences, the wrong keyword terms, things like that. So when people tell me like, oh, yeah, we're just not seeing the types of leads we want, I'm like, that's a top of funnel problem. That's not your contact form that's failing you. And it's great to say, oh, well, I want every lead to come through to be highly qualified. Otherwise, it's wasting our time. I would argue all day long that that absolutely isn't the case. You want to work through those opportunities. You want to perfect your process in how you mature those leads and how you follow up with them. One other small thing that I've read a lot of research about is the move from listing fields as required to listing only fields that are optional as being optional. So if there's no label, it means the field's required, but using optional on the ones that they don't have to fill out for the form to submit. And I think what the studies have showed is it's less mentally taxing. It also kind of removes some of the fear or someone being I'm told what to do or I have to do it this way, leaving the consumer, the prospect in more control. And then also as a rule of thumb, if you create that form and you have like 6 things marked optional, you probably are asking too many things on that initial form fill that you're just trying to get that lead to raise their hand and identify themselves and move them forward. So yeah, I'd be looking at, in the case of your long guy, I'd be looking at that as a follow-up question. Like, here's 2 or 3 things that we'd love to know. Here's how easy it is to do it. It also points out to me, and again, I'm biased here because this is what Leadferno is about, is using SMS to do these things. If they start an SMS conversation, for them to take a photo while they're texting you is easy as can be. It's far different in email where you have to go and attach and whatever else. So that's where you look at if I'm going to require this or I want this right up front, is email the best channel that I should be doing this communication in?
So I want to make sure I understood you correct. When you're creating a form and you have fields that are optional, you just list them as optional?
Yes. Instead
with the actual word optional, instead of the little
Yes.
asterisks. I feel like people often
Yep.
use asterisks on the ones that are required. So
Yes.
instead of highlighting the ones that are required, you should highlight the ones that are optional.
Yep.
Okay.
The required ones, you give no label. The ones that are optional that do not need to be filled in to activate the send or submit button or be able to complete the form, you mark those as optional. So the user knows you do or don't have to include this to get this form to work. We don't have to tell you the required ones because those are the fields that are here. And the 2 or 3 of the studies and articles I read just show it's just less of a load on that user to oh, what's required. And then you get into all the things of how fields are highlighted when required isn't filled out and right. We've all filled out checkouts, forms, whatever else, and it doesn't go through. And you're like, where is it? How is it?
So many times.
Oh yeah. Nerve-wracking.
Yeah. It's really frustrating. One thing you said that I really want to highlight is the concept that it's not your lead form that's a problem. It's like your marketing and your funnels that are a problem. And I think that's a really solid point that people don't quite get. So I have an example. We use Leadferno on Sterling Sky's website, and we get people that would contact us thinking that we're Google support, and all they would want us to do is help with the verification or things that we clearly don't do. We're an SEO company, right? So they would find us because they would Google Google support, and we have an article about it. So then we would show up, and of course Google support is not easy to find. So they'd contact us and think we're Google support. So one of the ways that we fixed that was we took our lead form off that page, right? I was I don't want our lead form on this page because this page sucks. And that is a really actionable thing that I've told people to do. If you have a page that's sending you trash, take off your lead forms off that page. Is that what you would suggest doing as well?
Yeah, always looking at those things. I guess the thing that I see the most in talking to customers that are using Leadferno and SMS is sometimes we get the feedback, and this comes down to expectations, where they'll be like, oh, I feel our texting leads aren't as solid as our email leads. And some of that can, again, be because they've married themselves to, oh, well, that has 8, 10 questions, whatever else. And now I need to ask those questions or do these things, and they're not maturing them the right way. Those faux pas, and we'll get into some of this of the interaction faux pas that are there. But I've seen people use our tool where they get a text lead. The person's like, hey, I'm interested in this. And their first reply is, great, email me these answers at this. And they push them back into email. So business owners and some salespeople have a great way of mucking up great systems and great tools and everything else, right? None of this does just works all by itself in a silo. That's for sure.
So before we move on, we have a few questions, and I want to make sure people are getting their questions in. So this first question here from Mark, in the autoresponder, do you advise, or is it possible to include a summary of like what they sent?
Some forms do allow that. I don't think it's, I definitely don't think it's necessary, because most of the time when you're looking at this, like the things are already specific. They remember that reach out. It's not going to be like, why did I submit this form to a tree care company? They're not like wondering why that happened. I think, maybe in some cases where it might be a lot of information or detailed shared in that initial message box, perhaps that could be helpful, but I definitely don't look at that. If I made a list of 20 things, that probably wouldn't be in my top 10 or top 20 in an autoresponder to include.
Good to know. All right. And then Carrie asked, what about multi-step forms? How do you feel about those? Even if it's a 3 or 4 to 6 questions, I've seen ones where, you hit next and then it tells you like percentage at the top.
Yeah. So let me be clear with this. Number one, we were testing contact forms, right? And contact forms should be short and sweet. I have a question. I have a need. Please help me. Where we see these multi-step forms are often in something that might be to specifically schedule something, to get a quote, get an estimate. I think in those cases, those things work really well, right? And what you want to do, I think, more than anything is test. Run a one-page form that has 8 or 10 questions for 90 days until you have enough data and information, and then run a multi-step form that has 3 questions in 3 steps, and just take a look at, do we get more levels of completeness? Can we track where they drop off in each step? Things like that, where you can start to understand it. No matter if something is one step or multi-step, right? I've done too many form fills, even outside of this research over time. You can still introduce a high friction process to people, even with the best intentions. So you really need to kind of think through that. I tell people, use a rule of thumb, be your own customer. What happens when you fill it out? What happens if you go ask your mom or your brother to fill it out? Like, you need to see it through the eyes of the consumer and the prospect, instead of the eyes of you, the marketer and the salesperson. It's like, oh, well, I want all this info and whatever else. And you haven't gone and tried to fill it out on your phone. You haven't gone and tried to take a picture of your lawn with your phone and then transfer it to your computer and then complete the form, because you didn't understand, oh, if I just stop filling this out, then I can fill it on my form on my phone, that kind of stuff. So that's probably my biggest rule of thumb in these situations. Like, actually use it yourself. Use people who might be in your target, your audience yourself, and ask them, was that easy to fill out? Did it feel taxing? Did it take up too much time? Was it too much of a commitment? If you get any friction on those things, you should be looking to push that as low as possible. Again, you want to start the process with most contact methods more than anything.
So this is a good question. Sometimes people don't receive these forms. I know we already talked about, having a VA or somebody check this weekly. Sometimes they go to spam. Sometimes the emails just don't arrive. Any additional advice, or is it still just the check it once a week and that you should be able to solve these problems?
Yeah, checking. And then I think that kind of leads us into a segue of some of the next stuff that we'll talk about. So let's just remember that question, and we'll touch on some things regarding notifications,
Awesome.
especially.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the next thing in your study?
Yeah, the next thing, and this is maybe the headline, right? Like 42% of these forms filled out never replied at all. Not once, not anything, right? Like, this to me is so mind-blowing, because, and obviously I work in a world, and Joy, you do too. What's the number one thing that people want? Leads, right?
Yeah.
And so they're getting leads, a highly qualified lead in this case, and they're not doing anything with it, right? Like, the fact that this was, I expected 25 to 30% was my bias going into this. And when it surfaced at this, I was just scratching my head, right? And we see, right, we broke this down by industry, and we can actually see, and I think a lot of people's biases would be like home services, contractors, they're the worst and whatever else. Well, in our study, we saw they actually performed the best out of these.
Wow.
Yeah. And we saw professional services perform the worst at these. So just a truly mind-blowing number. And there's a lot of things that can, go into some of this stuff too. But then we broke down and look at what's the time to getting a first human response, right? And this averaged almost 18 hours, right? 17 hours and 49 minutes is what we saw for an average of the response time. And in the digital world, this is just unreal, right? Like this is so much time. It's just completely, it's ridiculous. It just shows the business doesn't really care about leads. They say they want them, but what they really want is a fully qualified, fully signed up, already bought lead. They don't want an opportunity, because when you're putting such little resources or doing so little, that even if you're a one person business in a truck or a vehicle or doing whatever else, this is way too long. If you respond to leads at the start of the day, check at lunch, and check at the end of the night, even to get a response to let them know, hey, here's when I can follow up with you further. And to me, this also just even reinforces why you need an auto reply even more so. So you at least are immediately establishing something. If you're going to take this long to move your ass to sending a reply, calling, texting, whatever else, right? Like, do something better than what we're seeing with this.
Oh man. Okay. We got loads of questions coming in. So I just want to know, first of all, I know there's studies on this. What is a good response time? Like, what should be the target?
Yeah. So great job. What we see in this is like 5 minutes, which is really asking a lot, but we see that the odds of connecting and possibly converting that lead decrease by 80% after the first 5 minutes. So if you want to, so if you want to create like a holy grail, 5 minutes is definitely there. And we can see from this chart, right, it subsides as we go through in this study within the first half hour. I would say for most businesses, if you can respond in the first half hour to hour, you, as we saw from, just that length of time, and we'll talk about what we also saw in the study for speed of reply, you're going to be beating a large majority of your competition. You're also going to fulfill what people are expecting. Some of this comes down to the channel too. You're also at the mercy of a number of things. There's definitely a number of things to pick apart in this. But again, that if you're going for the gold standard, 5 minutes is what you want to be looking to. And if you are going to be serious about your leads, that first hour is absolutely where you should be focused.
That's insane. Okay, so first question, did you, when you were factoring these stats together, did you factor in like closed hours or weekends?
All right, I should have mentioned this. So we did these in the mornings, and we did them Monday through Thursday. So no Fridays, no end of day. So we did factor in if something got left all the way up, right? It's time, and not just factoring everybody's office hours, but we gave ample opportunity for these businesses to reply. The majority of them we are filling out to start the day with them within their first hour or two of being open. So I wanted to get the truest results possible. I didn't want to, here in the US, let's fill this out on Wednesday before the extended 4th of July weekend and see what happens. Like, I know what's going to happen on that. It's going to be very delayed. So yes, we gave them the very best opportunity to reply to these in their normal business hours.
So to be clear, let's say I'm open till 5 and I get a lead at 4:58, right? So then would the desired result be to like answer that lead like first thing 9 a.m. the next morning, and then you're kind of still in that 5-minute window? Or is it like, no, you need to be responding after hours?
Yeah, time is time. So I would say you want to be working yourself to do that. When you have either tools or someone dedicated, things like that, you are able to cover more fringe areas with like less focus by doing that. So it obviously all comes down to the business. I'm not going to tell somebody like, hey, you need to change your business hours or do whatever else. But I always say, like, there's one set of hours that are your open hours. There's another set of time that might be your availability hours. And then depending upon how easy you make it or what that looks like I'm a business owner. We have an auto reply. If someone, texts asking questions about Lead Furno at 10:30 at night, they get the auto reply. It automatically pulls in when we're open next and lets them know, hey, we're going to contact you starting at 8 a.m. Central tomorrow. But if I'm sitting there in bed, I'll be like, hey, I'm on right now, so I'm happy to answer questions for you. And I start engaging them because I am available and I would like to help them because I'm not doing anything else right now. So there's definitely things to think about in that business, but in any of those situations, again, if you're sending an auto reply, the auto reply contains the hours of when you're responding, who they're going to hear from, how you're going to follow up. We're going to contact you by email and try you with a phone call. Things like that are all going to be to your benefit instead of they send it, they hear nothing. And when you get to it tomorrow, the next morning, they might have already gone to someone who is open 1 hour later, more available for the next hour or two, or just send an auto reply and let them know, hey, here's the next step. Let's take it there.
So let's say you have an after hour service. This is something I know some businesses have invested in for their call service, right? So like they'll
Yep.
actually answer their phone calls at 10 p.m. at night, but it's not really them, it's some answering service. Is the same thing kind of apply to your lead forms and stuff? Would it be a good idea to have somebody, maybe even somebody overseas where it's like, 9 a.m. somewhere, responding just to let people know, but they don't really get the actual like quote or the actual person they want to talk to till the next day? Is that usually worthwhile?
Obviously, it depends. What's the nature of your business, your service? Is getting that contact and making them again feel heard, connected. I'd be surprised how much again an auto reply might fulfill those same things. Where yeah, you
Mm,
get a human, you might be talking to them on the phone, but what you're trying to do is make them feel taken care of and connected, even though you're not actually able to do something for them or give them expertise, things like that. You're just enabling a next step happen, but mostly you're just making them feel heard and confident that they have an open line of communication with you. So as long as you're able to do those things, I would say that weighs out. But a lot of businesses can probably get by just by having good proactive communication and setting expectations without having to have a 24-hour answering service. But again, it's going to
yeah.
depend for all service types and businesses.
So I have a friend that runs a tree care business, and I remember this was years ago. He came to me and he was like, "Oh, I think I need to increase our ad budget because we want more leads, yada yada." And I specifically asked him, I said, "How far behind are you on quoting? Like all the leads you've got, how many where you've actually gone out to the property and quoted them on your service?" Because home service businesses usually do that, right? They have to go out and they have to actually assess something, and that
Yep.
takes time. So he was 2 weeks behind, and I laughed at him. I was like,
Yep.
do not increase your ad budget until you work on that turnaround time. So for businesses that have that problem where they actually have to like assess something in order to give a proper quote, is there like a standard best practice of how soon they should get out and do that?
Yeah, I don't have anything timing wise, but I just always come back to setting the proper expectations, right?
Mm,
Like, even if you set a timeout and you can let them know, here's why, like maybe it's, hey, I only do quoting on Mondays. So Mondays, I travel to everyone that's there. The rest of the time, I'm doing the jobs, just as you'll appreciate when I'm doing your job, that I'm available on those days to do it. So here's why it's going to take me. My next Monday's all the way booked, but I'll be there the following Monday. I think when you are proactive, you provide rhyme and reason to people. A vast majority would be like, okay, cool. That's the process. You've communicated to me. I have trust and confidence in it. As we see with, responding to leads and how important that data is, you definitely don't want to stretch it out too far because someone can get impatient and can look to do something else. So you want to figure out something in your process that the customer can cope with or expect. And if you're tracking that time internally, like, okay, hey, on average takes us 2 weeks, but we still are closing 90% of these estimates, then all right, timing isn't a big factor. So we just should be
mhm.
really good at communicating what that is. And if anything, if we set an expectation, we can get to it earlier and say, hey, good news, I am able to come out this Monday because something dropped or I got through my other ones. Now they're ecstatic and they think you're even greater rather than, oh, I tried really hard and now we got to push you out another week. That's when people start to get pissed. It's not worth it. Let me try someone else, things like that.
For sure. All right. So I'm going to go to the next thing here, which is we talked about speed. How many times should you follow up on a lead? That's a question I know that we get asked quite a bit.
Yeah. So one thing that I can share here that is also mind blowing is what we found is 65.5% of people followed up one time, right? As I would call it, as a college basketball fan, where guys go to play college basketball for 1 year and they want to get drafted, being one and done. Like majority of businesses are one and done with their leads, which is mind blowing to me, right? Like You are working to get that customer to your website. They are putting in the work to fill out your form and do something. And all you can do is one email reply or one phone call or one voicemail left. It's really mind blowing to me. And I get it, right? Like we were going to ghost all of these leads. So we're going to see exactly what do you do when you don't get any love? And of course, many of these, if the person called them back and they're playing phone tag or they reply to the email, more things would go on. But we wanted to see, like, when they have that lead, how many attempts do they make? So 65.5% at one attempt, 13% at two attempts. Really at the end of the day, we only saw 8% made at least 5 attempts or more. The highest, which I think probably went too far, is we saw 2 businesses make 16 and 18 attempts. Yeah, within that 3 weeks.
Wow.
Now, both of those that were doing that, were doing a majority by text messaging. So we didn't see, that amount of phone calls, you'd probably block that number. And that's the beauty of, SMS is it's like, it's easy to manage, easy for that person to ignore or not engage with. They can even reply stop if they don't want to receive any more messages. But it's really not going to piss them off as much. But I definitely don't see any reason to go that far. For me, the sweet spot is probably somewhere between at least, 3 to 6 attempts would probably be smart. But I know, because in software, we do a lot of cold email. Like, I do not run a cold email campaign unless I'm getting 5 attempts at someone. And I see it all the time where people have questions and then I follow up and then they go silent or ghost. Well, it's just something came up with what they're doing. But then if I follow up another couple of times, oh yeah, sorry, didn't forget about you, had to deal with this, whatever else. So it's like you find the right mix on how to approach them, the timing intervals, the channels you're using, all those different elements.
Yeah, let's talk about that, channels. So this is something that I think is interesting. Sometimes I'll message people on Facebook and they'll be like, we don't reply to these, call our office. And I'm like, dude, if I wanted to call your office, I would have called your office. I don't want to call your office. So should you prioritize responding to them on the channel that they first contacted you on? And then if you don't hear back from them, would you advise trying a different channel, like actually calling them or emailing them or whatnot?
Absolutely. So number one, respect whatever channel that they started with. Like, there's a reason that if you gave them options to call, fill out a form, text you, however they started that, respect that channel first. They've shown this is my preference to communicate. So communicate through that first. I've written blog posts on the Leadferno blog about this. You can then transition them. A lot of people I just want phone calls, only phone calls. Well, then follow up and answer their first question. Be like, hey, these next steps would be easier on a call. Can I call you right now? And the same with texting. Text with them, answer their questions, say, great, can I call you right now? Because you're on your phone, I'm on my phone. If you're free for a call right now, and that's how I'd rather engage with you, let's do that. Or you offer and say, I do have 6 or 7 more questions. Would you like to answer those over phone, or should I just, text them to you right now or email them to you? So definitely respect that preference. After that, I would say if you have captured email and phone number and you're not getting them, I would make an attempt through those. So we looked at what are the follow-up channels that people are utilizing. And we saw, almost 3/4, 71% use just one channel to respond. So they're only calling that prospect back. They're only emailing them. They're only texting them. Then we saw another 24% use 2 channels. So calling and texting, emailing and calling, and then just 4% use all 3 channels. Now, you need to be smart here and make sure that you're getting correct permission to use these channels these way when you're collecting them on the form. So having an opt-in by submission or a separate opt-in that says we will contact you by a preferred channel or by phone, email, text in order to meet your needs. But I think when you reach out using those, just saying hey, we tried you via this channel and we weren't able to connect. So I did want to place a call to make sure your needs were being taken care of. I think there's absolutely respectful ways to do this and to go about it the right way, not be abusive with it, not be over aggressive with it, any of those things. And we also found that, text messaging within these follow-ups just really is underutilized, right? And this, again, I'm biased. It's at the core of our product from our studies and how we found people engaged with it. But text messaging is the number one preferred channel for people to be contacted by. We've already ran these studies. We've established it's almost 2 to 1 over email, but yet email is so often used to reply to these forms and causes a number of problems. So only 20% use texting at any of the steps in any response. And we saw only 9% of business use texting as a first quick and easy response to connect with these customers.
Yeah, it's definitely underutilized. And I know like one of the struggles that a lot of business owners have is they don't want to give out their personal cell phone number, right? Which is why an app like Leadferno is a great solution because you can
Yep.
have different members of your team still communicating with that same client on the same text message chain. And I think it really relieves a lot of the barriers to texting. But for some
Yep.
reason, a lot of businesses still haven't adopted it, which is
Yeah,
wild.
totally. So the last thing that I want to touch on, and this is something where we kind of broke down. We've already talked about that first reply time, how much reply. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what is just known in most industries as speed to lead, how fast you get to it. So what our study found is over 3/4 of the replies of these businesses, we already saw the average was almost 18 hours, but we saw 70% or 75% of the first replies being greater than 4 hours. So well outside kind of what we were talking about with that window. And then when we look inside, like who is nailing that holy grail of 5 minutes, just 3% of the forms we completed actually had a response in 5 minutes. Then we see in the first half hour, another 4%, and the first hour, 3.5%. So, roughly only 10% made that first hour goal that I was alluding to and talking about before. We see that bump happen in the 2 to 4 hours, doubling that first hour from there, which is good to see. But again, there's still 75% are taking at least 4 hours. They're taking half a day, half a business day to respond to that customer. And so it begs me to look at like, why is this? Why is that so slow? And I just think email is the problem. And again, I'll put it out there with my bias, but let's take a look at this, right? Like email is the most crowded thing that we have. There's a reason we talk about inbox zero and people comparing how many thousands of messages they have that are unread in their inbox. Like it's true for the business and it's true for the consumer. Our inboxes are full of spam, sales pitches, marketing newsletters, vendors, cold reach outs, customer communication, everything else. So a lead doesn't do anything to stand out. There isn't a lead notification in email that says, whoa, this is the email that you should stop everything for and respond to quick. No, it's coming in with a whole other dump truck load full of shit every day. So how are you going to treat that any quicker than you're treating your other emails? We also see email people as unchecked, right? We're doing deep work. And so we're not checking our email that time. And we also look at like email isn't instant, so I don't need to worry about, so I only check it every few hours or morning, afternoon, right? Things like that, depending upon what you're working on, what's going on. And we get so many emails, we're not going to enable push notifications on our phone for our Gmail app or something else, because I would have 600 notifications in a day. And that's not standing out to me, right? So all of these things, really compounded. We also see email, breaking, right? A relay, something hits a spam list. We have those things happen, and that's not helpful. And then just overall, there's a lack of accountability, right? Like you're not able to track and say, oh, how fast are my employees responding to leads? Because email inboxes are sectioned and partitioned off that even if you're an admin, then you can go in and see them. But now you're going to have to do all the math yourself on when did the lead come in? When did they reply to it? What does that look like? So to me, email as a core focus is a really big problem here, but that's where 99.9% of all forms go to. They go into email. And then we get good things like that. I mean, these things just kind of delighted me and tickled me because it's like, oh, great. Even in doing just a few hundred responses, I absolutely saw the things that I thought I'd see, right? This person called and left a voicemail to follow, basically apologizing because we left a lead 3 days ago and they discovered a problem with their website and a break in the email, so they weren't getting the leads, right? So here's somebody that it took them 3 days to respond because something in the setup of form to email wasn't working right. And you're just left with it. If you're still interested, it's not still interested. It's like, you probably already went with someone else. If you didn't, we would still love. And also, you probably don't have as much confidence that we actually know what we're doing and running our business.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say while you're sharing this, I want to do a test. If you are watching this, tell us how many unread emails you currently have in your inbox and just put it in the comments. I would just love to see. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And then here's another example, right? Where you have, I just found this in my spam folder. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this response, right? Like your number one digital lead source is going into your spam folder and you have no control over this, right? Like it's been tagged somewhere else, could be internal, could be based on the service you're using, whatever else. But like this to me is ridiculous that in part of your process is checking your spam folder or something else led you to check your spam folder and find it. So yeah, those ones, just being completely ridiculous is what we see kind of dive us into those. And that's what kind of led, to be self-serving at this point. The contact form solution you're using, the big take in doing this research is we built a form builder solution specifically for contact forms that the message goes to SMS instead of email. They get an auto reply text to it. You're able to text with that customer. We also allow you to display the other contact options we offer, like start a text conversation, request a phone call, linking to other forms that you have. So that was our overall solution to it, is like, how do we make that happen? Because when you're in that, now some of the things that we've talked about, now our app sends you a push notification. You have a new lead. You have a new lead form that was filled out. So now you have instant notification that's not in the clutter of email, in your inbox, unnotified, everything else. Push notifications are the number one thing that people see and engage with on their phone. And then we send an instant auto reply text. So that person instantly has a text from your business establishing your brand. Here's, as we talked about, this one stating we'll reply in 20 minutes, reply with more information or photos of your needs, right? Whatever else you want to share with us, this is automatically prompting the user to do that and bring that into the conversation.
Some of these replies are cracking me up. 10,000 unread emails. There we go, guys. That's it.
All right. I feel good. I'm at 60. So
yeah, no, I am only at 0 the majority of the time because I have an assistant. So I don't feel like it's fair for me to answer that question. So I have a few questions for you, Aaron, that I want to go through kind of rapid fire. Before I do that, I just want to make sure everybody knows August, we do have a webinar likely coming up. We haven't announced it yet, but to get details on that, just make sure, like Derek said here, you subscribe to our channel and you'll get notifications for when we launch those. We also have something that we're going to be trying next month, which is kind of new. I'm going to be meeting with Colin Nielsen here at Sterling Sky, and we're going to be going through a pretty long session of unpublished test studies that we've been doing on lots of things. I think our first kind of mastermind session is going to be all about links. I've been doing a lot of tests around links and how they impact ranking on Google that we have not had time to publish. So we are going to try and get through as many of those as we can in a single session. So again, subscribe and make sure you get alerted for that. That's going to be coming up hopefully late August. All right, let's see which questions I have here. So Aaron, can you clarify what these numbers were again? When it comes to the conversion rate for a reply in 5 minutes versus the first hour. Can you remind us what those were?
Yep. So it was an 80% decrease in the odds of connecting with that customer outside of the first 5 minutes, right? So a massive drop by not taking some pretty immediate action.
Wild. All right. This question from Foxer, spam form entries are still getting through even with CAPTCHAs. How do you deal with the crap that comes through contact forms?
All right. So not my area of expertise here, right? And some of it, like, this is just the nature of the beast with that stuff. The other thing you always have to weigh out is if we put in more security measures and things like that, select the bike in these photo grid, do this mathematical equations, like all these things are going to stop some users from doing it. Like when I'm on my phone and I have to do an image reCAPTCHA, like I have quit forms. I'm just like, it's not worth it because half the photos are off the screen and things like that. So your forms are going to have different things built in. We have like reCAPTCHA built into the back end of ours that is going to, basically grab X amount of percent, but there's still people that, are using enough qualified and highly intelligent ways to do these things. Like you're just not going to get rid of it. It's just part of the thing that unfortunately you have to live with. And I would say you can test adding on some of those things, but don't let it come at the cost of someone else thinking you're too hard to work with and quitting your process.
Good suggestion. All right. And then this question from Mike here. So you'd rather give an email than a phone number. How do you deal with people like this guy who doesn't really want to give you a phone number? Do you still make it required?
Yeah, I always say optionality is a great conversion tool, right? So that's why I say people should be offering text messaging. They have their click to call, they have a form. And if it's me and I do it, I put our email address out there, or we create an email that forwards into another for somebody who might only be willing to do email. So I always say work how your customer wants to work. That being said, you can put more focus on the ways you want that to happen, right? Like if you fill out this contact form, we want to use text messaging because we know you're going to see it faster. We're going to see it faster instead of a past study has shown the average reply time to an email is 90 minutes. The average reply to a text message is 90 seconds. So you are 60xing that response time. And that's just not the business responding. That's the consumer responding as well, right? And I think that's the other thing that businesses don't think about is, am I communicating somewhere that's highly visible and highly manageable for that customer? When I'm getting buried in their inbox, that's not manageable. When I'm calling them, they might be doing something else. They can't take a call. They're at work, they're in a meeting, it's just not the right time. Anything else, where that to me, again, is the beauty of text messaging, is the most manageable channel, right? Like God knows all the places we will read a text and fire off a text and everything else. It doesn't require intruding on someone else, needing space or time to take a phone call, things like that. So I say offer all the channels, let them choose, but be smart as a business and try to push people towards the ones you know that you can respond best, manage best, and get the best results from.
So I want to get you to actually repeat that. So if you're looking for faster responses from your customers, you're likely to get a much faster response on a text message than an email. And what was the percentages you said?
Yeah, it was 60 times greater. So email replies average 90 minutes, text replies average 90 seconds. Right. And we don't have to think much further, right? Visibility of text messages, like the visibility, 98% are opened, and like 95% of text messages are opened in the first 3 minutes, right? Like email doesn't come anywhere close to that, right? Those stats are at hours for those. So if you truly want to create a quick connection and a fluid connection and a personalized connection, I just look at from all the studies I've seen, everything we've done, what we watch our customers do, SMS provides that in spades over email.
That's awesome. All right. Last question I'm going to put up here. They'd like to know if there's a short marketing video or something that they can send to their customers to help sell Lead4No.
Oh, hey, great final question. Yeah. So number one, we have a partner program. So if you go to our website, click on the Built For, and you'll see like digital agencies there. You can click on that. You can inquire what that looks like. But yes, we have a recorded demo that's on when you see our pop-up where you can text us and ask questions. You can also watch an instant recorded demo. There's also a link there to get a one-to-one personal demo. But if you want to reach out to us, if you're interested in being a partner, getting this for your customers, you get access. We have reports that track time of reply, first reply, total replies, everything we've talked about, we've built as solutions into our tool. We love working with agencies because the one thing that we don't do is bring more traffic to the site. And if you're an agency, you're driving more traffic, we want to help you convert more of it. And there's a ton of benefits to that. So look into that partner program, reach out to us. I can give you all the details. We have YouTube channel and videos and stuff like that can help with that.
Yeah, I can say we're a partner and it's fantastic. We also love feedback. So make sure you submit feedback for this webinar, things you liked, didn't like. We're always looking to kind of improve those. Aaron, just final thoughts. Where can people find you if they have questions after?
Yeah, obviously lead4no.com. And if you click on that text us button, you are more than likely to get me. The majority of our company is engineers. So the ones answering those are myself and my co-founder, Joel Headley, who, if any of you have been around long enough in the space, you know, Joel he was at Google for over a decade and in local and did when there was actually good support, that was because of a lot of things Joel championed. So he's my co-founder. So you'll get one of us to answer those things. So that's an easy way. Otherwise, I'm still very active on Twitter /X. and LinkedIn as well. I'm the only Aaron Weike in the world. My parents were very big into branding, so they really helped me out there. So
In the world. Wow,
if
impressive.
you Google Aaron Weike, all you're going to get is me. So
Amazing. That's good for SEO. All right. Well,
yeah,
thank you so much for joining us, Aaron, and we'll see you guys all again next month.
thanks so much, Joy. See you in New York.
Yes, see you in New York.